Welcome to the CRC webinar on Phase 2 Qualification and Registration. In the presentation, I'll give you an overview of the key information you need to know about Phase 2 qualification. I'll explain what to do if you've had changes between the qualification date and the date you're registering. I'll give you an overview of the information you need to know to be able to register correctly. And finally, I'll give you step-by-step instructions on what you need to do to register for Phase 2. Please note, this presentation is just a summary of the information you need to know about Phase 2 qualification and registration. It is not a substitute for reading the full guidance, which is available on our website and entitled Assessing Qualification and Registering for Phase 2. Details of which are shown on the slides in this presentation. Organisations which qualify for Phase 2 can register from the 4th of November 2013. New participants will be able to see Phase 2 in a drop-down list of applicable phases for registration. Organisations who qualify for Phase 2 must register by the 31st of January 2014 to be compliant. Qualification is based on settled half-hourly meters only. Organisational groups should assess their total settled half-hourly meter supplies during 2012-13 and then exclude dynamic and passive supplies, supplies covered by climate change agreements, supplies covered by the EU emissions trading system, and any other excluded supplies as stated in section 4.3 of the Assessing Qualification and Registering for Phase 2 guidance. This is available on our website and a link to which is shown on this screen. If the qualifying settled half-hourly meter supplies equal 6,000 megawatt-hours or more, then the organisational group will qualify for Phase 2. An organisational group is determined on the group structure as it existed on the 31st of March 2013. All UK qualifying supplies to those companies for the full year, that's 1st of April 2012 to the 31st of March 2013, will count towards the qualification assessment. If the organisations that were part of the group on the 31st of March 2013 used 6,000 megawatt-hours or more in total, then that organisational group will qualify for Phase 2. If they qualify for Phase 2, they need to register between the 4th of November and the 31st of January. Please note that if you owned a company on the 31st of March 2013, you include its full 2012-13 qualifying supplies, regardless of whether you only purchased it mid-year. Having assessed whether the organisational group qualify for Phase 2, you then need to look at the subsidiaries within the group, and if any of the individual subsidiaries used 6,000 megawatt-hours or more of qualifying electricity during 2012-13, these will be classified as participant equivalents. All participant equivalents need to be listed in the participant's registration. These will appear in a list underneath the participant's name. They are no reflection of a real-life organisational structure. Having assessed whether the organisational group qualify, any subsidiaries which you wish to allow to go off and have their own CRC account can do so. This is called disaggregation. The parent organisation must authorise subsidiaries to disaggregate, and to do this they must include them within their own registration first. We will explain how to do this later in the presentation. If the parent authorises a subsidiary to disaggregate, but the subsidiary never sets up their own separate registration, then that subsidiary will remain the responsibility of the parent organisation for all compliance activities. Subsidiaries which you've chosen to disaggregate will need to set up their own participant account, and in this they need to include the CRC number of the parent organisation or the parent's company's house number. This allows a link to be formed between the parent's account and the subsidiary's account. Disaggregation isn't complete until both the parent has authorised the disaggregation and the subsidiary has registered and entered their parent's details. If you qualify for Phase 2 based on your organisational structure on the 31st of March 2013, then you will be in the scheme for Phase 2 despite any changes to your organisational structure after this date. In an instance where you have sold a participant equivalent between the qualification date of the 31st of March and the date that you are registering, that participant equivalent will need to set up their own registration if they are now a standalone organisation, or if they've joined an organisation which qualified for Phase 2, they can be included within their registration. If the purchasing organisation wishes to disaggregate the participant equivalent will be required to set up their own registration. There are various scenarios which could have occurred between qualification and registration. We've exemplified one of these scenarios on the following slides. For further information about changes to organisational structures between the qualification date and the date that you are registering, please see the guidance on our website entitled Assessing Qualification and Registering for Phase 2. Or alternatively, contact our help desk at crchelp@environment-agency.gov.uk. Here we have an organisation that's sold a subsidiary between the qualification date and the date that they are registering. At the top of the screen, we can see that Organisation A included subsidiaries B, C and D on the qualification date of the 31st of March 2013. The 2012-13 qualifying supplies to Organisation A equalled 12,800 megawatt-hours. Subsidiary B used over 6,000 megawatt-hours of qualifying supplies in 2012-13, so it qualifies as a participant equivalent. On the date that Organisation A comes to register, it has actually sold subsidiary B. It still qualifies for Phase 2 because on the qualification date of the 31st of March 2013, it used over 6,000 megawatt-hours of qualifying supplies. Participant A will not include any participant equivalents on its structure because it has sold subsidiary B. Participant A will put a qualifying supply of 5,800 megawatt-hours in their registration. This reflects the 2012-13 qualifying supplies to the companies that exist in the organisational structure on the day that they are registering. Here we have a purchasing organisation. They've purchased subsidiary B from Organisation A. Organisation W's structure on the 31st of March 2013 included subsidiaries Y and Z. The 2012-13 qualifying supplies to Organisation W equalled 13,200 megawatt-hours, so Organisation W qualifies for Phase 2. Subsidiary Y used 6,000 megawatt-hours or more of qualifying supplies during 2012-13, so it qualifies as a participant equivalent. When Organisation W comes to register, they will include 2 participant equivalents in their registration. This is because both subsidiary B and subsidiary Y used 6,000 megawatt-hours or more during 2012-13. Organisation W will put a qualifying supply of 20,200 megawatt-hours because this reflects the 2012-13 qualifying supplies to the structure as it exists on the day that they are registering. The best way to think about Phase 2 is to see qualification and registration as 2 distinct tasks. First, the organisational group assesses whether they qualify based on their organisational structure on the 31st of March 2013, and if they do qualify, they are required to register, no matter what happens after that date. Now we will look at what the organisation needs to include in their registration on the day that they register. The organisation needs to include their 2012-13 qualifying supplies for all of the organisations that it owns on the day that it is registering. It also needs to include all the participant equivalents that it owns on that day, even if it is planning to disaggregate some of them. I'll now provide step-by-step instructions of what you need to do to register a brand new account for Phase 2. Go to the web address shown on this screen and then click on the button Register New Account. Select Participant and then click Next. Select Primary or Secondary Contact and then click Next. Then enter your full name, your email address and then create a password. Make sure that you remember this because you'll need this every time that you log into the CRC registry. You will then be provided with a 12-digit number. This is your user ID. You will also need this every single time that you log into the CRC registry, so make sure that you keep this safe and don't forget it. Enter the 12-digit user ID that was just created and the password that you made up. Then click Login. Click Register as a mandated participant if you are a government department, a department of a devolved administration, or government has specifically stated that your organisation must participate as a mandated participant. All other organisations should just click Register as a participant. Read the information on the screen, note down your CRC number, and then click Next. Ensure the number 2 is displayed in the drop-down box and then select Next. Select the type of organisation you're registering as. You will then see different screens depending on what type of organisation you are. If you're registering as a company, enter your company's house number and then press Search. Your company should then appear and you can click on the underlined name. If your company does not appear on the screen, click Manually Enter Details. You will then see a screen where you can enter all the details you need to about your organisation. You will need to click on the Add/Change Address green box to be able to add addresses. If you selected that you are a public body, you will see this screen. You need to enter your organisational name and then click Search. If your organisation is found, click on the underlined name on this screen. If it hasn't been found, click Manually Enter Details. The details of your organisation will then appear. If you selected that you are an organisation of individuals, you need to enter your details here and then select Next. You then need to indicate whether you have an overseas parent. If you're working for an organisation that has no UK-based entities and you are their proxy, you also need to select Yes on this screen. You then need to enter the details of your ultimate overseas parent on this screen. You're then required to tell us about any organisational changes that affect participant equivalents between the qualification date of the 31st of March 2013 and the date that you're registering. Provide a summary in the box and then click Next. You're then required to enter the details of an individual who will be able to submit your annual report, purchase and surrender allowances, and manage any change notifications on your account. After entering all the details, select Next. You will then be required to enter the details of a second individual who will have the same capability within the registry. You're then required to specify whether you have any settled half-hourly meters. For most organisations, the answer will be yes. However, there are instances when you may not have settled half-hourly meters, but you are still required to register. For instance, if you're a mandated participant, if you've had organisational changes between the qualification date and the date that you're registering and no longer own the settled half-hourly meters, or if you're disaggregating from your parent organisation. If you select Yes, you'll be taken to this screen. You're then presented with a screen where you need to enter your meter point administration numbers for your settled half-hourly meters. You can either enter these individually by clicking the Add button, or you can upload a file with all of your settled half-hourly meters in it. This needs to be a text file or notepad file. The meters you're entering on this screen are those that you're still responsible for on the day you're registering. You'll then be presented with a summary screen. You just need to tick the box to show that you've entered all of your Phase 2 qualifying meters. You'll then be required to enter your qualifying supplies. These are the 2012-13 qualifying supplies to the organisations that exist in your structure on the day that you're registering. So, from the examples we used earlier in the presentation, Organisation A would enter 5,800 megawatt-hours in this box, and Organisation W would enter 20,200 megawatt-hours in this box. There may also be instances where you are entering a figure less than 6,000 if, for instance, you are a mandated participant, you've had organisational changes between the qualification date and the date you're registering, or you are a disaggregating participant. In some cases, you may even be entering 0 if you don't have any qualifying settled half-hourly meter supplies at all. You also need to indicate on this slide whether you've excluded any settled half-hourly meter supplies from your qualification amount. For instance, if you have 10,000 megawatt-hours of settled half-hourly meter supplies and 2,000 megawatt-hours of these are covered by a climate change agreement, then you would tick the box, I have removed supplies for excluded uses from my qualification amount. You would then enter 8,000 megawatt-hours in the box above. Full details of all of the excluded uses are contained in section 4.3 of the Assessing Qualification and Registering for Phase 2 guidance, the details of which are shown on the screen here. You will see a threshold warning screen if you enter a figure of less than 6,000 megawatt-hours for your qualifying supplies. This is simply to make sure that you meant to enter a figure under 6,000 megawatt-hours. As explained previously, this may be correct if you are a mandated participant that didn't meet the threshold, you are disaggregating from your parent organisation, or you've had organisational changes between the qualification date and the date that you are registering. You then need to specify who you want your subsistence invoices to be sent to. If you want it to be an accounts payable department or someone other than the two individuals you've already mentioned on the account, then please select Other and enter the details. If you want the invoice to be sent direct to the accounts payable department, then put accounts payable in the forename or surname field. We've now got to the point in the registration where you need to outline any participant equivalents which you own on the day that you're registering. To add a participant equivalent, click the plus button. A box will then appear and you need to click to add a new PE here. You then need to enter what type of organisation the participant equivalent is and then enter all their company details. The screen hasn't been shown in this presentation. Having entered their details, you then need to specify their qualifying supply in this box and then click OK. The participant equivalent will then appear on the list as follows. Repeat the process if you have more than one participant equivalent. You'll then be presented with a summary screen. If the information is correct, tick the box and then click Next. You'll then be required to select your compliance account holder. This is the organisation that has the day-to-day responsibility for ensuring that the organisation complies with the CRC scheme. This organisation should be based in the UK, and if you are a UK-based organisation, it needs to be part of your organisational structure. It can be any size of subsidiary. Participant equivalents will be shown in the drop-down box, but if you wish one of your smaller subsidiaries to be your compliance account holder, click Other and then enter their details. If you are acting on behalf of an overseas organisation that doesn't have any UK-based entities, you also need to click Other and then enter your details and specify that you are a proxy organisation acting for the overseas parent. On this screen, you will then enter if you have a parent organisation from which you are disaggregating. If you are disaggregating from your parent organisation, you need to enter their CRC number if they've already registered, or alternatively, their company's house number if they have not yet registered. You will then see this screen where the details of the parent that you have entered are displayed. If these are correct, click Next. If the parent organisation has not yet authorised you to disaggregate, then you'll see the following screen. You can still proceed past this screen, but you need to make sure that you remind your parent organisation to authorise you to disaggregate. For a parent to authorise a participant equivalent to disaggregate, they need to tick the box on this screen next to the participant equivalent's name. Please note that a tick box will not appear against the compliance account holder's name for this account. If you want smaller subsidiaries, which we call non-participant equivalents, to disaggregate, you need to indicate this on this screen. To authorise a non-participant equivalent to disaggregate, you simply add them to this screen by clicking the plus button. When you have entered all the company details for the non-participant equivalent, they will appear on the list as follows. Once you've added the participant equivalents and non-participant equivalents which you wish to authorise to disaggregate, they will appear on this summary screen. Tick the box and then click Next to proceed. You then need to specify an individual who will act as your senior officer. This needs to be somebody who has management control over the compliance account holder organisation. For private companies, this would be a director registered at Companies House. For public sector organisations, this would be the chief executive or equivalent, And for other types of organisation, this means the person of equivalent seniority. The senior officer has ultimate responsibility for ensuring that your organisation complies with the CRC scheme. The senior officer will be required to approve the individuals that you've added as contacts for your account. To add the senior officer's details, select Other. You're then nearing the end of your registration. On this screen, you can download a PDF summary of the information you've entered so far. If you want to go away and consult with others before submitting your registration, you can save at this point, and your registration will stay on the system for 28 days. Read the legal declaration on screen, and if you're happy with this, click I agree and then select Next. If you're happy with everything that you've entered in your registration, select I have checked the application summary and confirm the information is correct, and then select Next. You will then be taken to the payment screen for your registration. You can pay immediately by credit or debit card, or you can choose to pay by backs and chaps. The payment details for backs and chaps are displayed on the screen. The day after you've made your registration, we will also send you an email with the payment details on, so that you have them to hand. You've now completed the registration. However, to be deemed to be fully registered and compliant with the CRC scheme by the 31st of January 2014, you need to ensure that you've paid your registration fee, gained approval from your parent organisation to disaggregate, and that your primary and secondary contact have enrolled. Details of how to enrol are shown on the next slide. Having paid and had authorisation to disaggregate, you will receive an email with your registration summary attached. Then, when your first contact enrolls, a Phase 2 registration certificate will be emailed to all your contacts on your account. This screen shows you how to enrol. If you want to study these steps in more detail, click the pause button on this video. That concludes the presentation on Phase 2 Qualification and Registration. Thank you for listening.